Do you know it? BCOP spells traffic and weather together every 15 minutes with the traffic center quarterly is on the way down on the floor. On 219, okay. And this is a commercial message. This is it's that time of year with goofy error messages acting masquerading as creepy. I just got a pink screen of death on my VMware. Visit techiehouse.clickford.net and you can just check out all the different things that for the gifts, gag gifts for the technical person in your life. We also fabricate equipment for podcasters and broadcasters as well. You could check this out today or anytime, 24 hours a day at techiehouse.clickford.net. So much crap around here. I gotta clean everything up. This is some alligator clips here. I have one and some else. Spot here. Okay. Just clean up one piece at a time. Am I going to phone calls? Yeah, if the people are calling in. If they can, if they get on, that would be fine. I just don't know if anyone's gonna call in. It's the weekend, particularly with playoffs. No one's listening to tech shows. All right. Oh, it's tonight. It's 2:20. It says coming back on at the top. And welcome back to TechBeat. This is our weekly technology news and information program for you techies out there. We're going to dive into more information here with Apple's allegedly new products. I wouldn't say it I'd say it very loosely. The starting price is 50% higher between the 14 and 16-inch models, but my advice right now, if you're a creative professional and you're editing at 1080p, and you're not doing 4K, and I would say get an Intel Mac. I just think this is really much like they claim to. These chips should absolutely make for an absolutely massive increase in performance. Apple says they expect 70% better CPU performance and double the GPU performance, or 4 times in the M1 Max over the M1, given the increase in memory bandwidth. We think that's probable. In the 14-inch version, the entry-level model has an M1 Pro with 2 high-performance CPU cores disabled and 2 GPU core disabled, for a total of 8 and 14 cores, respectively. That reduced performance chip is not available of the 16-inch model. If you want the full M Pro or on the 14-inch MacBook Pro, you have to spend $300 more, or you can get a 10-core CPU with a 14-core CPU for $200 more. Ugh. Just reading all that alone just makes my head explode. ProMotion is a new video processor. It brings 120 hertz of high refresh rates to the MacBook Pro, finally. And it allows dynamic variable refresh rates down to 24 hertz, which is not only great for movie watching but benefit to battery life. The speakers on the 13-inch MacBook Pro fine, but the newer models have 6 speaker sound that promises much better fidelity and support for spatial audio, whatever the hell that means. All the MacBook Pros should be forming a 3-mic array, but the new models should have improved sensitivity and lower noise floor, so recording should sound better. And if you're a professional, you'd never use the integrated stuff. I'm just gonna be honest with you. And even though there's a headphone jack on all the MacBook Pros, oh wait, did Apple just finish taking that away on their mobile devices? The new 14 and 16-inch models have significant high impedance headphones, which is great for studio headphones, which needs more power to drive them. Yes, I would agree with that. A better web camera and notch. This was the controversy if you follow the pundits, the YouTube pundits. The 720p FaceTime camera, which I find just funny, on most Macs, that's actually capitalized. So this is bad copy here. Including the 13-inch MacBook Pro, is a thorn on our site for far too long. Apple talks about improved image processing, and the M1 chip makes the camera better, and it does, but so is a crummy, out-of-date piece of hardware. I would totally agree with that. That's a fact. The new MacBook Pros have a 1080p webcam, but it's more important than the resolution improvement is the new optics and a wider aperture. This is probably the same hardware as the M1 Mac, which impressed us with its webcam quality. Unfortunately, this wide camera angle support with support for center stage is only an iPad-only technology for some reason. So while the new MacBook Pros have a better web camera, that's great, but that's not the one we really want. Whoever we is, don't say we. Okay, this guy's supposed to be a journalist. The new webcam is housed in a pretty significant size notch at the top of the display. This is what gets the YouTubers up in a tizzy. Despite it looking much like the iPhone, it's not a true depth sensor, whatever that is. There's no Face ID or an emoji or anything like that. The notch doesn't even cut into the main display area, though the area beneath the notch is a 16 by 10 display, just like all prior MacBooks. The display area on either side of the notch extends upward, is there, adding the screen on top of the 16 by 10 triangle. The menu bar is located in that area, effectively giving you more vertical space for all your apps. Developers can choose to use that extra screen space if they want to. And lastly, the connectivity and say that 5 times. Expansion galore. The ports are back. Years ago, Apple got rid of our beloved. I love this collectivism. This guy needs to go back to J school. Our beloved MagSafe charging connector, opting instead of taking one of the few Thunderbolt ports for charging, and they got rid of the SD card and the HDMI port too. That's how the 13-inch Pro, where you get just 2 Thunderbolt ports, a headphone jack, and nothing else. They should just call it a MacBook Pro Air, right? Or MacBook Air, right? With the new MacBook Pro models, Apple has given us, again, what's with this collectivism, with one additional Thunderbolt port and brought back the HDMI port, SDX's card slot, and the MagSafe connector. Somewhat confusingly, the company also uses MagSafe as its brand for the iPhone magnetic and charging accessory attachment technology, which is a different thing, but also involves magnetic charging. But as this guy would imply, Apple kind of reuses old names. Like, I'm wondering when these things will be called PowerBooks again. Yeah, we wish again, speaking for everybody, we wish the HDMI port was supported HDMI 2.1. It's 2.0. It tops out at 4K at 60 hertz. But this is still a huge heap in the right direction, backward. Yep, the touch bar is discontinued, although the function keys are full-size keyboards. I'm just adding on to the words here. A full size of function keys for a laptop. I find that to be interesting. The battery life, this goes on and on and on, but I think for most people who are working in the real world, this is not inherently the most, I think, the most important stuff. This is great for consumers who like flashy stuff, but I'm not a flashy guy. We'll talk more about this on the other side of the break. This is the TechBeat program. I don't have control of the board right now, so I'm like a few feet away from it. So, yep. Is that my on or my? Just lost the connection. $2:34 is the time. cables here. It's all a work in progress. Work in progress. Okay. Oh. I promise we'll get this all set up. Like cables. Right, that's the AV cable. It's not the. I promise we'll get this all squared away here. A little bit dark. A little bit dark. But at least it's good. Shut the microphone. I want it on its own stand. Sorry if anyone was listening on the stream here. Yeah, we'll get this done by next week. So I'll do an intro for the listeners of the show. .34 will be our return time. I turned on the volume earlier to make sure. Hello? This is a programming note from BCOP 990. The following program does not reflect the management or staff of this station. The editorial opinions and conjectures do not reflect BCOP's editorial standards. Therefore, the news division cannot be held liable for anything that is said on this program. Likewise, the opinions and advice should not be the primary opinion, and BCOP News Radio or the program cannot be held liable for any mistake heard by the listeners of this program. Thank you. And now, from BCOP 990 Copenhagen, TechBeat, your weekly outlook on an objective view of the technology business and technical questions from you. And now here's your host, Stephen Clickford, from Clickford Media Services. Yeah, excuse me a moment. I was just posting on my Instagram and just behind the scenes of this. But still, like I said, I was just talking off the air. This is still a work in progress, trying to get all this. I've been developing this firm for a while now. Let's focus on some other issues on the day with the new Apple. Oh, just when we're talking about Apple here, my Xserve is like literally behind the camera, and I had to take something out of the Xserve, and well, I kind of screwed some stuff up here. If you're watching the stream here, I kind of Yeah, I caused some damage to the heat sink, so I'm gonna have to go get a new heat sink and put this in my collection of. This one's got a little cable here to give the temperature information on the Xserve. So yes, I'm an X. Well, I don't really recommend Xserves. They draw a lot of power, and not only that, they're noisy, and yet the power management. You want to talk about power management? Xserves were lousy at power management. But I don't think an Xserve is going to come back. I know that there's a Facebook group dedicated to defending the Xserve and keep throwing a hashtag on Facebook as if somebody at Apple's going to hear them. So, um, yeah. Um, there's actually an interesting analysis that I see here with Apple. There's people that like Apple for a certain type of era and vintage, and then they live on the past. And that was one of the things when OS 10 came along. People didn't like OS 10 because it was just it. They just didn't like it. But the problem is OS 10 was significantly better than classic Mac OS, and they just they feel like there's this they just feel like living on the past just makes them feel better. And I think that where Apple's going now is more concerning than when OS 10 came out 20 years ago. While we're on 20 years ago, it was 20 years to this day. Right after 9/11, we went in a really horrible financial recession. Um, It is on October 23rd, 2001. Steve Jobs announced that Apple was venturing into the field of music and unveiled the very first iPod in a small room. Oh, yeah, because Apple had done those small events back then. Why music? Steve Jobs said in his introduction. Well, we love music, and it's always good to do something that you love. This is not a speculative market. The first one cost about $399, and it probably cost more like $900 if this technology came out with the technology not improving. I'll talk about inflation another day. And it was designed to be a size of a deck of cards and could hold 1,000 songs. It had a 5 gig hard drive that was plugged into a FireWire. So basically, it was like carrying a hard drive with a little touch interface and a back, a display. And Apple's technology had improved over the years. I should have gotten one of these. I was very late to the game because that was when I was basically rebelling against Apple. Who knows? I might get one on eBay. Um, and I prefer the old hard drives myself. I wouldn't take the but they were around in various capacities. The Ipod Nano looked like an iOS device, but it was not an iOS device, believe it or not. Um, the seventh generation iPod Touch, of course, that's just the iPhone without a phone, still kicking, but who knows when that gets discontinued. All right, so we have about a few more minutes. Let's continue reading you the other stories this week here on TechBeat, but that's kind of an important subject here. Um, yes, the other story that I have today on TechBeat is on fire safety. So October is Fire Safety Month, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And some techies would run into situations where you gotta be careful with your high voltage electronics and safety. So we'll talk about that at 2:51, just before our mini land. People have to sign up for the very very important Green Studs postseason pregame show, just in case you need to know. Other news of this week. We will get to that. I again have some share. Apparently, I a couple weeks ago, I had I had apparently was trying to get a CNET story, and it didn't load up because apparently my OS on my Mac is on El Capitan, and the root certificates are no longer reading properly. I'm on the camp of what works. Um, I would say don't run the very .0 version of an operating system that's no longer actively supported. But upgrading an operating system, the word update is such a delimiting word if you are using um, if you're using various software drivers. There's a lot of factors to why people do not upgrade on the latest. But again, you need to be on something that is supported or something that is stable, and that's the problem with the tech world is they just don't understand all that stuff. If you have any questions, we will be taking callers after 3 o'clock due to some technical stuff going on right now. So just an FYI. HP Enterprise Company Aruba. This was the former company behind ProCurve switches, is taking reps of a new flagship data center switch aimed to help better control and secure hybrid cloud traffic in the enterprise. The Aruba CX 10,000 series is uh, which switch is a top of rack layer 2 3 data center box with 3.2 terabits per second of switching capability, 48 ports of line rate 10 slash 25 gigabits Ethernet, and 100 gigabit Ethernet connections. The ports, excuse me, the company says. But the most intriguing component is an integrated ELBA program programmable data processing unit, see that gazillion times fast, from Personado that helps eliminate the need to keep separate appliances for security and load balancing, for example. Ugh. Personado is a startup led by a crew of former Cisco stars, including its chairman of the board, ex-CEO John Chambers, and other leaders from Cisco's engineering, Mario Mazzola, Preem Jane, I can't get all these names, collectively known as the MPLS based in their initials. Oh, that's funny. The MPLS group has a number of companies that respond back into Cisco during Chambers' times as CEO. We'll talk more about that later. Actually, yeah, we're running out of time. We're going to do our break and then come back at 2:51 to talk about some fire safety advice coming up next on TechBeat. BCOP spells traffic and weather together every 15 minutes here at a quarter hour for live traffic center for the very latest on the slowdown on the slowdown. From the BCOP Weather Center, much cooler we've been breaking near record highs, although we do not break a record per se, but those records were really recent, by the way. Temperatures will be seasonably mild today. Tonight will be much cooler than last night. Lows in the upper 30s elsewhere, low 40s downtown. And tomorrow, temperatures near 60. Repeating, and then throughout the rest of the week, more of the same. May test the highs near 60 in the midweek. Repeating, current temperature is 58, going up to 59 degrees in downtown Copenhagen. BCOP news time 2:47. 2:51, and then we close out the show. Good to know. Good to know. 2:50 is the time. Two. That clock is ahead of itself. Oh, that one's synced up. This is a programming note from BCOP 990. The following program does not reflect the management or staff of this station. The editorial opinions and conjectures do not reflect BCOP's editorial standards. Therefore, the news division cannot be held liable for anything that is said on this program. Likewise, the opinions and advice should not be the primary opinion, and BCOP News Radio or the program cannot be held liable for any mistake heard by the listeners of this program. Thank you. And now, from BCOP 990 Copenhagen, TechBeat, your weekly outlook on an objective view of the technology business and technical questions from you. And now here's your host, Stephen Clickford from Clickford Media Services. All right, welcome back to the show. If you are a vlogger type of person, I would recommend that you do a video of you calling your folks in 7 digits if you have 7 digits. If you're still calling 7 digits, here in New York State, I believe we've been 10 digits for a number of years because of overlay numbers. Particularly if you have overlays. So if for instance, the reason why they did 10 digits was because just for consistency, because you may have a phone number in Copenhagen that would be a 7 digit. You call another person that wasn't a Copenhagen number in that new area code, but it was for standard sake. So if you are doing that, if you're in an area where you still call 7 digits, today's your last day for most states, particularly in the U.S. I'm not sure about Canada per se, but the National Suicide Hotline is going to take over the first 3 digits of 9. Because I don't think when 911 came along, there was numbers that started with 911, and the 311 was actually a fake area code that the Western Electric Company did. The Western Electric Company did for their marketing and demo purposes for their devices and stuff like that. And then, it's now the 3-digit number to City Hall. But again, there's too many 3-digit service numbers if you ask me, and just the whole regulation of it. This is why I'm not in high tech anymore. But I wanted to give you some advice, some techie advice before I sign off today, because I have about 4 minutes, actually 3.5 minutes left, so I should cut to the chase. This is the National Fire Prevention Safety Month, so I just thought I'd inform you folks of some advice for your home labs. You might be using Cisco devices to practice, or you're learning on stuff that there's a couple things that you really want to do. If you're going to do a lab, make sure it's on its own circuit. I know that's easier said than done, but if you don't have a circuit available to do this, your next best option is to make sure the circuit you're using is not not something that's power, something that's a high power device like your furnace or your air conditioner. Next thing, if you know that you're being in an overloaded situation, the signs you will know that it's overloading is that the power cable is going to get really warm. It's actually in a smoldering situation at that point. If you move the plug on the main outlet, it will spark. Or have some real sparking. So make sure you do not, if that happens, don't touch it with a power being applied. Then the other problem is if your UPS is going on and off, this is canceling out with the purpose of your circuit breaker. So if your circuit breaker is developing, well, the circuit breaker isn't stopping the circuit because of UPS devices could be causing a problem. So if in that you do have a smoldering situation, turn off the power immediately. Don't even bother trying to do a shutdown. Just turn off the power. Turn off your UPS or your power supply. You should be using a UPS for your IT devices anyways. Turn off the main power and then see if the smoldering stops. unplug on the I would say at the UPS level before you pull it out of the wall. Um, Typically, this overloaded circuit just really means it's just drawing too much power than what the outlet can handle. But if it's not caught fast enough, then you have a potential hazardous situation. But it's smoldering. It's not a life or death situation. Another advice that I recommend is make sure your devices are on. Just because UPS has plugged more things in, ignore that. Make sure that you. One good sign is to make sure your power load is greater than, or excuse me, less than 40%. Because if you have more than 80 to 100, then it means it's not going to really hold a power when the power gets knocked out. Also, have everything balanced. With regards to surge protectors, do not use surge protectors against surge protectors. That includes surge protectors against uh, UPS devices because they don't cancel each other out and cause more problems. Using power strips, like those long bar outlets, like you probably will see. It's not up, you can't see it. That's okay, but make sure that it's not powering servers and those other outlets on UPS devices are not being used because then it will draw more power and cause that. Well, I'll bring up more of this at a later in the next hour, but we gotta say goodbye to our friends at Miniland. Miniland is going to do their most important post-season pre-game show. So we'll wrap it up. Have a great weekend. We'll be back in a moment for the rest of us, for the rest of you listening. Are we going to take calls today? Okay. Fair enough. It's 2:58 and 27 seconds, or 37 seconds. I don't know if I got the power applied there. We might have to go at the next hour. That's fine. I got plenty of stuff. I'll open up the 3 o'clock hour. Okay, fine. In the spirit of Copenhagen, news, traffic, and weather. This is BCOP, BCORFM, and BCOE AM 821 Copenhagen. Good afternoon, this is John Crichino.
Do you know attacking your
COP newsroom here are the top stories. We're working in BCOP newsroom. A mini figure is now charged for murdering a 40-year-old cold case. We'll have that story in just a few moments. A state auditor says that the state's budget is way too much money. Various programs will cover that story in just a moment. News on 30, pushing 301 traffic flows together every 15 minutes on the quarter hours.
The BCOP
we're having problems. I love it. I know, they just patched our screen here sometimes they literally patch the software for our touch screens and if everything's not working properly. Fill me out, Nicole Giordano at the BCOP Traffic Center. Oh, baby, right now we do have problems on the University. Our next news update at 3:30 in breaking news when it warrants. This is John Crichino in the BCOP newsroom. If BCOP 990 was a music station, it would be an eclectic blend of serious news and beautiful, high-level information to our listeners. Our listeners are one of the most brightest and smart consumers in any northern Brick England market. Tap into the highest net worth of information by contacting BCOP Sales at 231-272-9949. 231-272-9949. This is a programming note from BCOP 990. The following program does not reflect the management or staff of this station. The editorial opinions and conjectures do not reflect BCOP's editorial standards. Therefore, the news division cannot be held liable for anything that is said on this program. Likewise, the opinions and advice should not be the primary opinion, and BCOP News Radio or the program cannot be held liable for any mistake heard by the listeners of this program. Thank you. And now from BCOP 990 Copenhagen, TechBeat, your weekly outlook on an objective view of the technology business and technical questions from you. And now here's your host, Stephen Clickford from Clickford Media Services. And welcome back to TechBeat on this nice day. It's an apple, it's apple weather. If you could still pick apples, I think it's past that season anyways. Today's topic and advice is on, if you're watching the web stream, it's a little bit, there's a lot of light here because it's sunny today, and so you might see some of the colors not pop out properly. I tell you, don't adjust your TV screens. Probably who I'm dressed up today. In case, for those who are wondering, if you're watching the web stream here, I'm dressed as Lord Business. And there's something on the back. Show my foot here. I expect total perfection. And I think there's another line. It's like 3 lines in the film Lego Movie. That kind of goes full circle here for our minifig audience here on BCOP 990, BRSK 550. We're off now because they're doing the very important pregame for the postseason of the Green Side. So go for them. I hope they lose. Not a baseball fan by any means. We were talking before the break about fire safety. This is fire safety prevention, say that 5 times fast. The other thing I would suggest, we talked about various, make sure you're on your own circuit, making sure that you have your devices spread out. This includes servers and even some types of switching equipment. You want to be careful with that. You also want to make sure that your systems are grounding is really, really, really important. I mean, you shouldn't be cutting corners there. The other thing that you want to make sure is the use of power strips. The only time I recommend you use power strips is if it's only plugging in something that isn't going to draw a lot of power right out of the bat. Appliances, never plug like a vacuum in a surge protector, for example. Don't plug, obviously, an air conditioner and something like that. Um, those draw much more power than your average computer, for that matter. You want to check your amperage ratings. That's another thing. If you're plugging in wall warts, that's okay. I recommend that would be fine. If you're powering routers, even rack mount metal grade, that's okay, unless if you don't have anything plugged into your UPS. You want to make sure that you're you're drawing power. So when you plug in, let's say a foot to like a 4 feet power strip with like a 3 foot power, you got to do all that math for the amperage is going to draw out the UPS. If it's going to draw the equivalent, you're fine, but just make sure you don't use the other outlets. And so I use the safety covers you use for your children, so they so you're not, you can't use it. Again, you see it in a lot of data centers, but just be sure to make sure when you have your UPS, some UPSs will not tolerate that. Check your warranty. For instance, Cyber Power won't allow you to plug in power strips, even if they're small or whatever. But what constitutes a power strip is rather interesting. 'Cause I have a few that I got at IKEA that I use. Again, I'm plugging my Mac Mini and a display, and then the other stuff is for like outlets. Non-switch, non-UPS power. Um, that the cord is like a foot long, and then the receptacles are 3 receptacles, but I'm not using the other receptacles. And this is where things get iffy because if you have one high, let's just assume you got a monitor and a computer that's on battery backup, and your other devices that need to be on during a power glitch, you want to make sure that it's plugged in. The problem is the only reason why I recommend a little power strip that's not a surge protector in the surge protected slash UPS outlet on your UPS is to prevent the to prevent um, failures on your computer or your devices. But it all depends on how much outlet space you have. And a lot of these wall warts have different shapes and different sizes. They've never come up with just going in with the outlet. I have one plug right now that I actually have right in front of me that's not plugged in because I was decorating for Halloween, so I needed an extra outlet. But this guy right here, it's rare. It runs a voice over IP, a small little VoIP gateway here, but it's at the width of the outlet, and it's a really cute outlet. But plug. But rarely do you get AC wall warts to have that size. So unfortunately, you want to put that into consideration. Your outlets are capable of handling it, and make sure, like, don't put your entire data center on one UPS, even if it has like 1500 or 1500 potential amperage. You want to have them separated. I keep my two big powered servers on one UPS. I have another UPS for the servers and the equipment, and there's one. Forgive me, I just yawned. In the other room, and so that's what I have going on with me right now. All right. Another thing to go over to today was the 988 telephone number that is going in place. Again, today's your last day to call 7 digits if you're a 7-digit world, which I don't personally do, but you just want to be careful on that. 988 will not go to the National Suicide Hotline until about July of next year. Some providers might do it sooner than later, but this is impacting the American people. All numbers, including cell numbers and 10-digit numbers. We'll talk more about why I think this is going in the wrong direction in a moment. It's 3:14 here on BCOP 990. Yeah, we'll get some phone calls up. I'll try to. I can't guarantee that the phone will work. This is a programming note from BCOP 990. The following program does not reflect the management or staff of this station. The editorial opinions and conjectures do not reflect BCOP's editorial standards. Therefore, the news division cannot be held liable for anything that is said on this program. Likewise, the opinions and advice should not be the primary opinion, and BCOP News Radio or the program cannot be held liable for any mistake heard by the listeners of this program. Thank you. And now from BCOP 990 Copenhagen, TechBeat, your weekly outlook on an objective view of the technology business and technical questions from you. And now here's your host, Stephen Clickford from Clickford Media Services. Welcome back to TechBeat here. Oh God, I'm waiting 3 different times and sincere thank you to our technical support people at BCOP in Miniland, or excuse me, Copenhagen and BRCK 550 Miniland. I'll get this at some point. Regards to 988, I really don't think this is a good phone number to be used. I find it emergency dispatching. I understand what they go through. I get what they're going through, but on the flip side, mental emergencies are mental emergencies, and to continue to deny that as a point of fact is just so irresponsible for people in during this time. It's just, I mean, people go through so much, and we need to be more empathetic to people that have various handicaps, mental difficulties, and stuff like that. And we really should not be making fun of them or things of that nature. I use that word a lot. I'm not going to use that too much here. Another thing, I'm going to be going to Boston next Friday, or this coming, well, it's next Friday because it's next week. That's kind of my style book, right? And going to Boston and to the Museum of Science. It's a really nice area to that part of Boston, if you ask me. But one of the things that I noticed with particularly um, with with um, the Museum of Science was I went there I think for all intents and purposes my first or second time in 2015, and one of the things I've noticed at MOS was there was a Xerox Alto computer. I'm not kidding. There was a Xerox Alto machine there, but it was sitting like without any credit. Maybe it was nefarious. Who knows? But there are people out there that just probably don't take these old things to heart in the most literal sense. So I'm an amateur photographer. I have not taken formal photography lessons. And here's my camera here, my trusty Nikon D3200. I've had this for 7 years. Most people go through like maybe 20,000 snaps before, you know, they they get rid of it. This one's been through a lot. 50. I think I took was it 30,000 on my D3100. Now I'm at 61,000. So I've been taking about roughly 90,000 snaps, and most of them are, I think of them I still have 60,000 images in my computer. So there's right now I don't have a memory card in here. So when you go into photography, when you take your whether it's a DSLR or a crossover, I certainly recommend that you make sure that you have an SD card, that you keep your settings kind of consistent. So, for instance, I don't do automatic on stuff. I don't trust the automatic. These things they do chew up time. Automatic. Some people will say dummy controls. I won't be able to use that phrase, but what I would do, how I would recommend you people do it, is to keep your ISO at a rate I would say I'd say 400 to 800. 400 would be good during the day, 100, 200 during the day with direct sunlight, and 800 at night. In areas where you need to light up dark rooms. If you're in a dark building like you are at MLS, I recommend you go up to 800. Um, Aperture shutter priorities, I don't tend to do that. I tend to just do manual and then open up the iris shutter speeds because what you're doing is lighting versus the speed of a shutter. And if you're doing freehand, it's hard to get a good tight shot if you're in the dark. So that's why I really prefer like manual on everything. The other thing I would recommend people doing as well is making sure that you have you're familiar with your compensation for particularly the exposure compensation. I keep that pretty low, but you can adjust it when you need to. That's a recommended thing. Get to know your camera and use the raw format if your hard drive has it, because by using raw, you're gonna get a crisper picture. It's gonna probably be 20 megabytes a snap, or even more than that with newer generations. But what you're doing is you're getting the full depth. Because if you do the JPEG, you're actually not gonna get everything that you see pictured. And then if you have the issues with the exposure compensation and things of the like, you're not going to get you're not going to be able to fix that in post. So it's really important to do raw if you can. Know your camera. Use your settings responsibly. Don't settle for automatic. Um, Lastly, as I kind of went back and forth on the 988 thing, I wanted to just add or close up on it. This I lost a loved one to a suicide earlier this year. It got actually coverage in the Copenhagen press. My loved one was my wife, my estranged wife. She had driven off a cliff, dying from injuries from knives on the steering wheel with the intent to harm. And if only we knew how to get help for her, she probably wouldn't have been in that situation. Um, that's just my view on this. I think 911 operators need to go through it. I think it needs to be changed and reformed. I think having another three-digit number is just adding more. It just makes things more and more complicated. So that's my analysis on that. 3:28 is the time. We'll come back right after the news at 3:34. So be back in a moment. This is TechBeat. If BCOP 990 was a music station, it would be an eclectic blend of serious news and beautiful, high-level information to our listeners. Our listeners are one of the most brightest and smart consumers in any northern Brick England market. Tap into the highest net worth of information by contacting BCOP Sales at 231-272-9949. 231-272-9949.
Do you know a techie in your life that likes to have technical themed stuff in their office or workspace? Do you have a favorite catchphrase that your techie person may like? Visit techiecrafts.clickford.net. This website has more than 20 items available at your convenience. the management or staff of this station. The editorial opinions and conjectures do not reflect BCOP's editorial standards. Therefore, the news division cannot be held liable for anything that is said on this program. Likewise, the opinions and advice should not be the primary opinion, and BCOP News Radio or the program cannot be held liable for any mistake heard by the listeners of this program. Thank you. And now from BCOP 990 Copenhagen, TechBeat, your weekly outlook on an objective view of the technology business and technical questions from you. And now here's your host, Stephen Clickford from Clickford Media Services.
And just a couple of things, not to be commercial programming here, but it is commercial programming, technically speaking, sponsored programming here. But this is a little shelving. This is, I think, I think it's about 8 inches long here, but this is where I put a lot of my hard drives. I'm going to shelve them up over here so that these scenes can work in my edit and production bay. Like I said, there's a lot of equipment, and especially like miniature devices are probably the worst offenders than big stuff. That's just my opinion and how I view tech here. On TechBeat here on BCOP 990, there is a huge delay. I'm watching me doing an audio test because we almost lost audio for a moment, and that was about 2.5 minutes ago, so there is a big delay right there, but we are recording this program, and it should be in sync. We'll try to work on those technical difficulties at some point here. We got 2 more blocks of news here on technology. We are unable to take your calls due to some technical gaffes here. It's much apologies. We're not getting a lot of ratings here, so it's probably not inherently a bad thing here. A new Aruba switch is designed to work in the data centers. In case you did not listen to the story, they're they're licensing some software from a crew of former Cisco stars. This is the Aruba branded, formerly known as Hewlett Packard's ProCurve equipment. They're calling themselves MPLS in their name because the founders are the initials of their first names, if I get that right. These were former Cisco engineers. This HPE Aruba switch can be a layer 2-3 data center box with 3.2 terabytes of switching, 48 ports of basic 10, 25 gigabits, huge, and 6 4100 gigabit Ethernet ports. They are getting the software from Panasonic. John Chambers is the executive of this, followed by 4 members, like the aforementioned MPLS people, the names of their first initials of their first names. They're also introducing so this will be available for $45,000, a bargain. It will include a stateful firewall, zero trust, segmentation telemetry, and DDoS security features. Another feature that this Aruba switch will have is network management tools. Where the heck is it? It will run the Aruba Fabric Composer software that will promises to simplify network provisioning across the company's CX switches that automates operations across a wide variety of virtualized, hyper-converged, and HP compute and storage environments. So that's the story on that little guy. There's no pictures of this product just yet. Do we have some sound from um a talk on I don't know what channel it was on. I'm trying to get that in a moment. Let's the Mac Yak podcast. Can we call up the Mac Yak podcast to see their opinions on Apple's allegedly new hardware? Which I think there is some stuff that I took out of that. If we can get that up to kind of fill up some time out. We might get callers. I don't know. We're having some telephone problems at this time of this airing. And then we gotta remind our listeners we do have a traffic and weather break in just 4 minutes away. So just stand by. Let's get some the Mac Yak. I I did have it on board, did I? Forgive me if it's not on our rundown here. Yep, you put C. No, you spelled that wrong again. It's Mac Yak. Stand by. We're just trying to get we're trying to get some audio on here, and sometimes it's we're not gonna be able to. Oh, you're gonna have to do it. Yeah, get it. All right, just stand by a moment. Maybe we'll play at the end of the show. Play some highlights from that podcast right now because it just doesn't want to work with me right now. We got everything. Did we get? Oh, we had some other things we were going to talk about today, and I don't have them on me. With regards to Apple getting really for all intents and purposes, if you're a creative professional right now and you're using Intel-based Macs, you're gonna you're probably doing this on your own, and I don't have a problem with that. But in terms of would I go to Windows or would I go to Linux, I probably would go to either, and then kind of go between multiple operating systems. I don't want to get into the wee details of that because that is discussed a lot with vintage air quote people, and oh yes, Facebook. Thank you for messaging that to me, my PA here. Facebook is changing their names, I think, or allegedly. Let's there were some stories on that. There's where's the news here? There I go. Thank you for getting that copy up there. So Facebook is looking at changing their name of the company, but yet there is so many problems, and there's a lot of opinions on here. There's a report out here that Facebook, and remember, Facebook is corporate name is all caps. Um, Facebook is going to change its name later this month in order to, so this is confirmed, to change its attention to build the metaverse, whatever a metaverse is. The social media company's rebranding, according to the report from The Verge, would put Facebook app under the same umbrella as WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, and other services that Facebook owns. Let's get the purported move coincides by scrutiny by the U.S. government over its reported politically driven businesses and practices. Um, Another whistleblower has said that she found blatant attempts by foreign national governments to abuse their platform on scales that misled their own citizenry according to another whistleblower. The report of the new Facebook company name is tightly held secret within the company. Even company leaders are not privy to the information, but it's possible that the name could reflect with its recently announced Horizon project. They're also working with smart glasses with Ray-Ban. Facebook is working with Project Aria that would be more capable for smart glasses to find lost things. Um, Earlier this year, Mark Zuckerberg said that Facebook would effectively transition from a social media company to a metaverse company. He had recently announced they would hire 10,000 workers in Europe to build his vision, I would say. So, this is from the Independent. Um, so, anyhow, new name, but nothing, folks, to see here. Move along. We're going to take a break and we'll get to traffic and weather together every 15 minutes here on BCOP 990. Stand by and we'll get the Mac commentary in a moment. So we'll just take a break. This is TechBeat. I'm getting 10 minutes of program. Damn. Somebody gave me a. Well, that's really nice. But that means I'm kind of bound to find the. Yeah, just give me 30 more seconds. Run a commercial. Yeah, I'm gonna do the new thing for TV6. Yeah, we'll do that. Yep, I'll do it at the top when I hand off. It'll be a five. It'll be a five. Yeah, it'll be a quick read.
This is a programming note from BCOP 990. The following program does not reflect the management or staff of this station. The editorial opinions and conjectures do not reflect BCOP's editorial standards. Therefore, the news division cannot be held liable for anything that is said on this program. Likewise, the opinions and advice should not be the primary opinion, and BCOP News Radio or the program cannot be held liable for any mistake heard by the listeners of this program. Thank you. And now, from BCOP 990 Copenhagen, TechBeat, your weekly outlook on an objective view of the technology business and technical questions from you. And now here's your host, Stephen Clickford from Clickford Media Services.
I mean, it's fine for pretty much everything that I do, but I have to work with software that other people use. You know what I mean? I have to get files from people, and they might have built them on newer version of the software that I don't have, and I can't install because I don't have the latest version of the OS on the computer. That's the sort of thing that I get frustrated by. So I blame other people.
Every WWDC, a group of Macs just kind of falls off, right? Or older Macs.
Yeah.
Just
Hey,
that
your
1
alerts
year
are on.
older, and it is tough. I guess my newest Mac right now, well, aside from my M1, that is really used. My boyfriend uses that one more. Is my 2017 iMac, and I've upgraded the CPU and the RAM and
This
the
is
hard
the
drive in
Macintosh
there, the .2
librarian.
drive, and
I recommend you
trying to
her
make it
on
last
YouTube.
as long as possible. Like, it's tempting to get one of the new, M1 Maxes to replace it, but maybe it's a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy where, like, I have put so much time and energy into upgrading this older hardware that it to me, it feels like I'm more connected to that hardware than if I were to just go out and buy the latest and greatest thing off the shelf.
I really enjoyed
maybe
that video, by the way.
The lower
the iMac
third
upgrading
says
video?
I'll go.
That
That's
was
the
nice.
other thing. We'll close up on.
And
That
this
was
is why you
clearing.
do not give your
Taking out
Mac
the
a
glass.
face. You get emotionally attached. You cannot break.
I don't have anything here newer than 2014. I've got lots and lots and lots of Macs here that I'm using all the time, but nothing newer than 2014 in the house.
My newest one is a MacBook Pro 2017. Everything else is older than that.
I don't trust
Other than
anything
the
prior to
M1 I'm on.
2016.
And the one I just bought, this is the newest one I have. And it's a 2014.
With each event, I'm tempted to buy something new.
Yeah, I came
And
close to
I've
getting
been
a new
keeping up with the
Mini.
iPhones. Yeah.
This guy is the only one I know that buys a 2014 MacBook Air along with a 2021 M1 in the same week. That doesn't make any sense.
Turn into a web page.
They talk about this
I
for
can't-
quite a while.
I can't risk opening up
can I
a
get
file
another
where
cut?
something might look slightly.
Can I get another cut in there? We're approaching, was it 3:53 here? Let's get the other cut up.
Another operating system, you can't have that same copy of Backblaze backing up. So you have to have Backblaze running on one and not running on the other. So the minute you flick over to the other one, you're not being backed up. Or if you have it switched on, then the computer is just going to get as confused as anything because, complete mess with the two.
Yeah.
So that's
Thank
what
you, Justin.
Like
I think that worked better when your computer was more of a single-use appliance, right? Back when you didn't really have to worry about getting online, getting to the net, getting connected to all these different accounts. You just would boot up your OS 9, OS 8 instance and get into Photoshop. But now you have all these, iCloud accounts and different email accounts and chats.
Yeah, you don't have to use iCloud. There's no requirement, at least prior to OS 11. Just saying, putting that out there. No one's telling you have to use it.
That you have to sync
Yeah.
up with essentially 2 machines now and 2 different OS instances.
Yeah, valid point.
That can be
And
troublesome.
Christian has a point as well. Virtualization is great, and I would use it for Unreal Tournament or older version of Photoshop. But the
I
problem
wouldn't
is,
recommend virtualization.
it's great if you have a lot of cores to spare. Graphics wise, you suffer like
exactly
nothing else in a virtual environment. So
Yeah, because virtual
Yeah,
machines
sucks.
don't use graphics, GPUs very easy.
yeah. But my dad.
All right. Just a CNBC column as I'm wrapping up on today's program. There's a column on CNBC.com in their Make It section of a Facebook name change could be a great idea or a terrible one. Just look at Google, Apple, and more. For almost 2 decades, Facebook's name has been virtually synonymous with social media. That may not be so good for the tech behemoth anymore. Facebook is reportedly to change its corporate name change, according to a Tuesday evening report from The Verge. That rebranding would include creation of a new parent company. Facebook and its social media apps would become subsidiaries. Facebook would not comment to the reports the CNBC's make it. Zuckerberg and Facebook are facing more scrutiny than ever as the companies spread misinformation and its potential towards very younger people. Facebook wouldn't be the first business to change its name or its rebrand in times of a crisis. Google becomes Alphabet. If Facebook's reported plans sound familiar, it's because Google did the exact thing in 2015, forming its parent company, Alphabet, which really made no difference. Google's public rationale was to help empathize Google's non-search business interests like artificial intelligence, autonomous cars, and venture capital investing. But now Google has been subject to antitrust inquiries. Apple's small but significant name change. This is kind of goes back to what I was just playing out earlier. Even tiny changes can have huge ramifications. In 2007, Apple dropped its second word name of its company the same year it released its first iPhone. In fact, to be honest with you, they actually introduced the name change when the iPhone was announced. The name was a reflection of Apple's increased focus in its other product lines. The stock price has increased by 1,200% in the past decade, giving Apple a valuation of $2.4 trillion. Can you help us pay our debt? And the company's best-selling device, the iPhone. Oh, Dunkin' Drops Donuts. Yes, I haven't. And Dunkin' Donuts is a New England chain, as you guys know. It's our institution that decided to screw themselves. Kentucky Forget Fried, Philip Morris, and yeah, there's so many name changes here. I could recommend that on the in the notes here on TechBeat. We're here every Saturday afternoon from 2 to 4 p.m. Eastern, except for emergent breaking news or program preemptions. But again, we'll always be on some station somewhere. And thank you for letting me come into your cars or office or computer, wherever. Have a great day. I'm Stephen Clifford. Stay informed. If BCOP 990 was a music station, it would be an eclectic blend of serious news and beautiful, high-level information to our listeners. Our listeners are one of the most brightest and smart consumers in any northern Brick England market. Tap into the highest net worth of information by contacting BCOP Sales at 231-272-9949, 231-272-9949. Do you know a techie in your life that likes to have technical themed stuff in their office or workspace? Do you have a favorite catchphrase that your techie person may like? Visit techiecrafts.clickford.net.
This website has more than 20 items available at your convenience. Shipping can be done within 3 business days. Use promo code 990BCOP at checkout to save 20% off for any orders over $25. Visit TechieCrafts.click for .net.
From the BCOP, weather center today will be much colder than yesterday. Highs near 60 for tomorrow, a little bit warmer for the rest of the week. Have a great informative weekend. This is Stephen Click for BCOP News Time at the Tone, 4 o'clock.
In the spirit of Copenhagen, news, traffic, and weather. This is BCOP, BCOR, and BCOE AM 1 Copenhagen.
Good afternoon. This is John Cricino in the BCOP newsroom. Here are the top stories we're reporting here on BCOP 990. A 40-year-old cold case is now confined